Maura Murray was born on May 4, 1982, in Hanson, Massachusetts. She was the fourth child in a family of 5 children. When Maura was 6 years old, her parents divorced, leading her to live mainly with her mother. Despite this, she remained close to her father. Her father, Fred Murray, worked in medical services, while her mother, Lori, took care of the home. Murray completed her education at Whitman-Hanson Regional High School, where she excelled as a star athlete in the school's track team. After high school, Maura decided to attend the United States Military Academy, commonly known as West Point. However, after some time, she transferred to the University of Massachusetts. Maura's boyfriend at that time, Billy Rausch, an Army lieutenant, was posted at Fort Sill in Oklahoma. In the weeks leading up to her disappearance, some of those close to Maura began noticing subtle changes in her demeanor. In conversations with close friends and even her boyfriend, Maura sometimes hinted at needing a break or wanting to get away from it all. On February 5, 2004, Maura Murray was on duty at the Melville Dormitory's campus security desk. Around 10:20 p.m., Maura chatted over the phone with her older sister, Kathleen, who was an alcoholic and had been discharged from a rehabilitation center that evening. "We didn't really talk about much. I had been fighting with my fiancé, and we talked about that, but I don't know why she would be upset about that," Kathleen said. 3 hours after the call, Maura began crying. Her work supervisor asked what was wrong. Maura only replied with 2 words, "My sister." When I heard she was crying after that, I couldn't understand why, especially because it's not like her to cry, Kathleen said. 2 days after that, on February 7, 2004, Maura's father, Fred Murray, came over to buy her a new car. Maura's 1996 black Saturn kind of blew a cylinder and was smoking something fierce, according to Fred Murray. After searching for cars all day, the two went for dinner. Fred offered Maura his new Toyota Corolla to drive for the evening. Maura drove her father back to his motel and returned to the university. Upon returning to the campus, Maura attended a small party with her friends. She mentioned at one point that she wanted to take the car back to her father that same night, which seemed odd given the late hour, the fact that she had been drinking, and her father not expecting the car until the next day. At about 2:30 a.m., Maura informed her friends she was going back to her dorm, but instead, she got into her father's car and headed towards his motel. On Route 9 in Hadley, she crashed into a guardrail, causing about $10,000 worth of damage to the Toyota. The local police arrived at the accident site, but no charges were filed against her. Maura got a ride back to her father's motel. She was upset, but it was okay, Fred recalled. After making several calls on Sunday morning, it became clear that Fred's insurance would bear the accident costs. As Fred had a work commitment in Bridgeport, Connecticut, he rented a car, drove Maura back to her dorm, and then left for Connecticut. That night at 11:30 p.m., Fred had a phone conversation with Maura, during which he reminded her to get the accident forms from the Registry of Motor Vehicles. Maura agreed to call her dad the following night at 8 to discuss the forms and complete the insurance details. On Monday, February 9th, shortly after midnight, Murray used her computer to look up MapQuest directions to the Berkshires and Burlington, Vermont. On that particular morning, there's no documented interaction with roommates or friends. However, Maura made a number of phone calls. Shortly before 1 p.m., she called Dominic and Linda Salamone, a couple who own a rental condo at the Seasons at Attitash Resort in Bartlett, New Hampshire. Maura's family had previously visited the Bartlett area and had stayed at the Seasons, but they had never stayed in this particular condo. The Salamones cannot recall the conversation they had with Maura, but they were confident that she didn't make a reservation for their condominium. "We don't operate like a hotel," said Linda Salamone. "Booking on such short notice would have been impossible. Reservations need to be made well in advance to allow the Salamones sufficient time to drop a key in the mail." Linda Salamone said that she might have provided Maura with suggestions for alternative accommodations, although her memory was foggy when the police finally interviewed her, nearly a year after Maura went missing. At 1 p.m., she sent an email to her boyfriend that read, "I love you more, stud. I got your messages, but honestly, I didn't feel like talking too much of anyone. I promised to call today though. Love you, Maura." Around 1:24 p.m., Murray sent emails to her professors at the UMass Nursing School and her supervisor, informing them that she would be away from town for a few days due to a death in the family. However, Maura's family later clarified that there was no such death. Liz Druniak, a close friend of Maura for a long time, said, "There was something she wanted to get away and think about. Maybe she just wanted to get away. She was probably under a lot of pressure." At 2:05 p.m., Maura placed a call that lasted around 5 minutes to 1-800-GOSTO, a service that provides recorded information about hotel bookings in Stowe, Vermont, and where reservations could potentially be made. However, it's worth noting that the GoSto system was unavailable during that time, so Maura could only listen to voice recordings and could not have made a reservation. At 2:18 p.m., Maura called Billy on his cell phone and left a brief voicemail message. She said something along the lines of, "I love you, I miss you, I want to talk." In her car, Murray packed clothing items, toiletries, college textbooks, a cell phone charger, and birth control pills. Upon searching her room later, campus police found that the majority of her possessions were packed in boxes and the artwork removed from the walls. At approximately 3:30 p.m., she departed from the university campus in her black satin sedan. At 3:40 p.m., Maura Murray withdrew $280 from an ATM. Surveillance footage indicated that she was alone and appeared to be dressed casually without displaying any signs of distress. It was approximately 3:50 p.m. when she walked into a nearby liquor store. Maura bought approximately $40 worth of alcoholic beverages, including Bailey's Irish Cream, Kahlua, vodka, and a box of Francia wine. Once more, security footage confirmed that she was all alone during this purchase. Yet, considering the types and amounts of alcohol purchased, it was clear this wasn't just for a casual night in. Was the alcohol for her, or was it meant to be shared? At 4:37 p.m., Maura checked her voicemail for messages. This was the last recorded call on her cell phone. At some point during the day, she also collected accident report forms from the Massachusetts Registry of Motor Vehicles. Following that, she embarked on her journey, heading north towards the wilderness of New Hampshire. The weather on February 9, 2004, was not optimal for a long drive, especially not for a journey through the winding, often slippery roads of New Hampshire. Snow was reported in the areas which would have made the road conditions hazardous, particularly for someone driving a car as old and as in need of repair as Maura's Saturn. There were snow chains in the trunk, suggesting some preparation for the wintry conditions she would encounter. When her car was later found abandoned, it was noted that the fuel tank was nearly empty. Given the almost empty fuel tank and the lack of specific navigational aids, it seems as if her preparations were a mix of thoughtful planning and perplexing oversight. Sometime after 7 that evening, Maura Murray crashed her car on Route 112 in the rural village of Woodsville, a winding and often desolate road. The exact coordinates of the crash site are approximately 44.1004 degrees north, 71.9570 degrees west, placing it in a rural, wooded area of Woodsville. The site was near a weathered barn, an easily recognizable landmark on Route 112, and crash site was also not far from a sharp bend in the road, making it a somewhat treacherous section to navigate, especially in poor weather. Houses were sparse but present. There were a few houses within a mile of the crash site, but not within immediate visual range. On the night of the crash, the road was icy and slick, with a light coating of snow adding to the hazardous driving conditions. There were no street lamps illuminating this stretch of Route 112, leaving the area shrouded in almost complete darkness except for the moonlight that filtered through the cloud cover. This stretch of Route 112 was not covered by any CCTV cameras, a fact that has hampered the investigation since beginning. Sometime after 7 p.m., Faith Westman heard a loud thump outside her house. Her house is located inside a sharp left-hand bend in the road. Westman lives there with her husband, Tim. Faith Westman peered out her window and saw Maura Murray's black Saturn lodged in a snowbank a short distance from her home. At 7:27 p.m., Westman called the Grafton County Sheriff's Department to report the vehicle. Westman told dispatcher that she was not sure if there were any injuries. Notably, Westman said that she could see a man in the vehicle smoking a cigarette. According to Maura's parents, she was a non-smoker and strongly opposed to smoking. During later interviews, Faith Westman stated that she observed a man holding a cigarette, whereas Tim Westman was convinced he saw a woman using her cell phone at the location. Tim suggested that the red glow observed, which Faith mistook for the ember of a cigarette, was actually the light emanating from the woman's phone. Meanwhile, across the street, neighbor Virginia Marotte was standing in her kitchen with her husband John. From our kitchen window, we saw a car down the road with trouble lights flashing and someone walking around the car, Virginia said. While she was watching from the kitchen window, she observed another neighbor arrive on the scene in a school bus. Arthur Butch Atwood worked as a school bus driver for First Student Inc. According to Butch, the car's engine was not running, but hazard lights were on. "I saw no blood. She was cold and she was shivering," Atwood told later. Atwood offered to get her help, but she asked him not to contact police. Atwood then offered to let Maura wait at his house until help arrived, but Maura wanted to wait with her car. Atwood mentioned that Murray claimed to have called AAA, but a subsequent check by AAA revealed no record of the call. He advised Maura to turn her car's lights on to avoid getting hit by vehicles coming around the bend, left the scene, and drove 100 yards to his house. Atwood noted that Maura positioned herself on the driver's side of her vehicle, keeping a distance of about 15 to 20 feet from him throughout their conversation. Atwood, a man of substantial build and around 60 years old, acknowledged that his appearance could have been daunting to Maura. "I might be afraid if I saw Butch. He's 350 pounds and has this mustache," said his wife Barbara Atwood. After he left the scene, Faith Westman noticed the interior lights of the Saturn turning on and off. She also saw a burst of activity around the car's rear, including someone standing at the trunk. After heading back to his house, Atwood called 911, prompting a local police sergeant to arrive at the scene within 10 minutes. However, by that time, Maura had disappeared. A resident coming back from work reported that at around 7:37 p.m., she drove past the location and noticed a police SUV positioned directly in front of Murray's vehicle. She stopped for a short moment, observing no one either inside or around the vehicles, and then chose to proceed home. The account provided by this witness does not align with the official police record, which indicates the Haverhill police arrived 9 minutes later. The official police log states that Haverhill Police Sergeant Cecil Smith reached the scene at 7:46 p.m. Observing the arrival of a police car, Atwood decided to return to his school bus to complete some paperwork. In later interviews, Atwood estimated that between 7 to 9 minutes had passed from when he parted ways with Maura until the police car arrived. Officer Smith approached Maura's car and discovered that it was locked. The windshield on the driver's side was cracked and both airbags inside the car had been deployed. Maura was nowhere to be found. Impressions from the tires were visible in the snow beside the car, but none were observed on the road itself. Furthermore, in the dense snow around the highway, no distinct footprints were detected. Upon inspecting the vehicle, Smith found red stains that appeared to be from red wine both inside and outside of the car. Inside, an empty beer bottle and a broken box of Francia wine were found on the rear seat. Additionally, Smith came across a Coke bottle filled with a red liquid with a strong alcoholic odor. However, none of the other alcohol bottles Maura had purchased in Amherst were located within the vehicle. Among other items discovered were a AAA card belonging to Murray, blank accident report forms, gloves, makeup, diamond jewelry, driving directions to Burlington, Vermont, Murray's beloved stuffed animal, and Not Without Peril, a book on mountain climbing in the White Mountains. Contrary to what one might expect in a typical abandoned vehicle, Maura's driver's license, debit card, credit cards, her mobile phone, along with her wallet, were not found in the car. Maura's family later confirmed that they couldn't reach her phone, finding it to be either turned off or out of service area. This led investigators to consider whether Maura had intentionally left behind no means of tracking her movements or contacting her. A winter coat was left in the back seat along with a blanket, suggesting that Maura was prepared for the cold weather but oddly chose not to take these items with her. After checking the area around the Saturn, Smith proceeded to the Westmans' residence, inquiring about what they had witnessed. Next, Smith traveled 200 yards east to Butch Atwood's home, where he found Atwood seated in his bus. Smith tapped on the bus window to get Atwood's attention. Recalling the interaction, Atwood mentioned, he asked where the girl was and informed the officer that he hadn't seen anyone since he departed from the vicinity of Maura's car. Sergeant Smith and Atwood both drove around the area searching for Maura without any success. The next day, police issued a BOL, be on the lookout, for Maura Murray. On February 10th, the only sniffer dog present was given a black leather glove from Maura's vehicle to track her scent. The dog managed to follow Maura's scent to a point approximately 100 yards east of where her car was located. This led the police to conclude that she had departed the area in a different vehicle. 8 days following the disappearance, CNN's Soledad O'Brien conducted interviews with Fred Murray and her boyfriend. During the conversation, Rausch shared with O'Brien that while en route to Haverhill, he received a voicemail message at a time his phone was off. I could hear only breathing, and then towards the end of the voicemail, I heard what was apparent to be crying and then a whimper, which I'm certain was Maura. The investigation revealed that the number originated from an AT&T calling card. Coincidentally, Maura's sister Sharon disclosed that she had purchased 2 AT&T calling cards for Maura prior to her disappearance. Further probing led the police to discover that the call came from American Red Cross. It just doesn't make any sense that the call was from the Red Cross, because if they had been trying to call Billy, they never called back. The soft crying, sniffing and muffled sobs didn't seem to make sense coming from the Red Cross, Sharon said. After police determined the call was from Red Cross officials, they chose not to pursue it further. 1 month later, the disappearance of Brianna Maitland in Montgomery, Vermont, located 66 miles from where Maura Murray was last seen in Woodsville, attracted attention from both the media and law enforcement because of the parallels between the two cases. Brianna, an American teenager, vanished after leaving her job at the Black Lantern Inn in Montgomery. The next day, her car was found backed into the side of an abandoned house approximately a mile from her place of employment. Maitland has not been seen or heard from since. State police clarified that there were no connections between the two cases. They also dismissed the possibility of a serial killer being involved, even though at that time, a serial killer named Israel Keys was active in Vermont, but he was ultimately ruled out as a suspect by the FBI. In April, Rick Forcier, a local contractor, reported a sighting of Maura on the night of her disappearance, approximately 4 to 5 miles from where her car was abandoned. Forcier was on his way home from his job when he noticed a young woman who resembled Maura running eastbound on Route 112. Initially, when questioned by the police 10 days after Maura vanished, Forcier did not report this observation. He later explained that his failure to mention the sighting earlier was due to confusion about the dates. Following the revelation of this new information, a bigger search operation was carried out on May 8th, involving multiple canine teams. However, this search did not yield any new leads. In late 2004, a significant piece of evidence was handed to Maura Murray's father by a man whose brother had a criminal background and lived less than a mile from where Maura's car was found abandoned. The item in question was a rusty stained knife that the man's brother owned. It was reported that the brother and his girlfriend exhibited unusual behavior following Maura's disappearance, with the brother suggesting he believed the knife had been used in Maura's murder. A few days after the knife was turned over to Maura's father, it was alleged that their brother scrapped his Volvo. However, family members of the individual who turned in the knife later claimed that he fabricated the story to claim reward money associated with the investigation. On November 1st, 2005, a development in the case emerged on an online forum named Not Without Peril, dedicated to discussing Maura Murray's disappearance. A user by the name of Tom Davies reported seeing a black backpack resembling Maura's backpack behind a restroom at Pemigewasset Overlook, approximately 30 miles east of Woodsville. Assistant Attorney General Jeffrey Strelzin stated that law enforcement was aware of the backpack, but did not disclose whether it had been taken for forensic testing. In October 2006, about 10 retired police officers and detectives volunteered to lead a 2-day search within a few miles of where Murray's car was found. On the first day, while searching a house approximately 1 mile from the crash site, a cadaver dog had hits on the second floor. The next day, 4 more cadaver dogs were put to work in the house and went bonkers, Fred said. The strongest hits by the dogs were in a downstairs closet, indicating that a dead body could have been stored there. The house had formerly been the residence of the same man implicated by his brother, who had given Fred Murray the rusty knife in 2004. During search, investigators collected trash bags of items and a section of carpet from the closet to test for blood and DNA. However, that carpet was eventually lost from the custody of private investigators as police showed no interest in it. 13 years later, in 2019, excavation was done within the basement of the same house, but nothing was found. As the case remains unsolved till this day, in February 2024, marking 20 years since her disappearance, New Hampshire authorities unveiled an age-progressed photo of Murray. Did you know that you can now become a knight, a lord, or even a king by joining my Patreon or becoming a member of this YouTube channel? Not only will you become legendary, but you will also be immortalized in all of my future videos. Check out the awesome perks for each level, and thank you for your support. Over the years, investigators and online sleuths have proposed multiple theories and suspects. Let's explore them. In 2012, FBI agents seized computers and hard drives from Scott Wall in Virginia, suspecting involvement in downloading and viewing CSAM. Wall was deeply involved in the Murray case, visiting the accident site and interacting with her family. A forensic analysis linked Wall to viewing both CSAM and Murray's photos on the anniversary of her disappearance. FBI agents collected a trove of electronic evidence from Wall's home, but overlooked a crucial business laptop en route from Florida. Shortly after their departure, Wall received the laptop, and upon later retrieval by the FBI, it had been stripped of its hard drive and RAM, effectively sabotaging any forensic recovery. In 2013, Wall was indicted for possessing CSAM, but after expert testimony, charges against him were later dropped by a judge. Since Wall's battle in court, he has taken on a larger role with Maura Murray's family, represented them at CrimeCon, appeared as a guest host on several podcasts, and helped manage the Maura Murray Facebook page. In 2019, when charges against him became known to the community, he was removed from his admin role on Murray family's Facebook page. Since then, Wall has become more involved with the Maura Murray case, where allegedly he actively tries to control the narrative around the Murray case, often responding aggressively to criticism or differing views, including threats of legal action against those who publicly discuss his past or challenge him. At the time of Maura's disappearance, her and Bill Rausch's phone bills were sent to Bill's mother, Sharon. Sharon gave a copy of this bill to Helena Murray. A detailed review indicated that some pages, specifically the one likely detailing Maura's potential roaming calls in New Hampshire, were missing from the records provided to the Murrays. But according to former U.S. Marshal Art Roderick, police likely subpoenaed the original records back in 2004, suggesting that the missing pages might have been a simple oversight. 2 days before Maura's disappearance, Bill made a 2-minute call to Maura's mobile, likely leaving a voicemail as her phone was off, and a minute later, he called her dorm. Later that day, he tried reaching her mobile again twice and subsequently called the dorm number again. The pattern suggests he alternated between her mobile and dorm number when he couldn't reach her. On the day of her disappearance, Bill called her mobile 8 times up until around 5 p.m. when he was informed of her disappearance. According to some, this time he did not attempt to call her dorm number because he knew that she was not at UMass. After being informed of Maura's disappearance, Bill did not call her cell phone for 2 hours. Instead, he made a 6-minute call to Kate Markopoulos's dorm and inquired about hotels in New Hampshire. Later, after Maura vanished, he made a roaming call to her phone lasting 3 to 4 minutes. The length of this call raised questions. Some have suggested that he might have been leaving a lengthy voicemail, possibly pleading for her to return home. Others have stated that he was accessing Maura's voicemail to check or manage her messages, a task feasible for anyone with the voicemail password at the time. Multiple women have accused Bill of SA and harassment since Maura's disappearance. A woman from Oklahoma, who met Bill months after Maura's disappearance, recounted a threatening incident. She said that during a car ride, Bill said, "I'm going to kill you like I killed Maura." After she threatened to hit him back, Bill quickly softened, claiming his threatening remark was just a joke, and they continued their journey. In 2011, Bill Rausch was fired from Ray Group International after a colleague accused him of assaulting her in the office. Author James Renner, who investigated Maura Murray's disappearance, revealed that this woman contacted him with her story, supported by text messages and other sources. It is important to mention that to this day, Bill Rausch has not been charged with these crimes, and many claims made by James Renner have been strongly refuted by family members. Another co-worker recalled a conversation where, during drinking, Bill displayed a disturbing level of loyalty by saying, "I would help you bury a body. Really, I'd help you bury a body. That's how good of friends we are." Many people on the internet have interpreted the evidence as suggesting Bill's involvement. However, I believe all of this evidence is circumstantial. It's important to note that Bill had a watertight alibi. He was over 1,000 miles away at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, when Maura disappeared. Rick Forcier, a neighbor of Butch Atwood, the local bus driver, became a suspect after he provided 3 different accounts. Initially, he told police he was on his couch at the time of Maura's disappearance. 3 months later, he claimed to have seen Maura running on the road. His delayed revelation raised questions among the police about why he waited so long to come forward. This was especially concerning since he had jokingly told his wife 2 days after Maura disappeared that she had come to his door, was living with him, and was a good cook. Despite observing police activity, he did not immediately consider whether he had witnessed anything unusual that night, choosing instead to wait months before sharing his observations. He changed his vehicle to the same make, model, year, and color around the time of Maura's disappearance, which seemed suspicious. According to some, this behavior could suggest that he transported a body and tried to avoid suspicion by replacing the old vehicle with an identical one. He also refused to allow the police to search his property, and they couldn't obtain a search warrant due to insufficient evidence. In 2014, he uploaded a song titled "Stalker" to YouTube. Some interpret the lyrics as him alluding to being on the couch at night, a woman coming to his door, and psychics involved in the case suggesting he had blood on his hands, echoing the statement of one psychic involved in the case. The theory originates from a local named Robinson Ordways, also known as RO, who was walking her dog along the same road around 7 p.m. She observed a suspicious red truck with Massachusetts plates and a distinctive wooden bed, indicative of a non-standard backwoods-style pickup, idling in the parking lot of the Swiftwater Stage Shop. As RO approached, the truck began to move toward her, seemingly checking her out, before continuing on toward Weathered Barn Corner. She entered the store to inquire if anyone else had entered the store recently, only to learn she was the only visitor in the last hour. If the red truck passed RO heading towards the accident scene 10 minutes before the police arrived, the driver had the opportunity to pick Maura up. The driver of the truck has never come forward to the police, as far as I have investigated. Claude's brother provided Fred Murray with the rusty knife, claiming that Claude had used it to kill Maura. Claude, however, denied being in town on the day Maura disappeared. Contradicting his statement, Claude's ex-girlfriend asserted that he was indeed in town that day and had even attended a birthday party. Claude worked at a car-crushing factory at that time, and according to his niece Lacey Moulton, her uncle is a violent man and is the type who would take advantage of seeing an attractive young woman stranded. He might have convinced her that he lived nearby and could offer a safe place to stay until help arrived. Tragically, while at his house, she was allegedly stabbed to death, and he later got rid of the body by crushing it along with his own car. She also posted a journal entry she found that he had written soon after Maura disappeared. It goes something like this: "Now is my moment last night, that moment when I saw an angel and made her an angel. The moment plays over and over again and again, and I smoke cigarette after cigarette. But the moment is gone. I know, but I am still high from that moment. An episode of the podcast Mind Shock discussed allegations that Claude might have been involved with another woman who disappeared years before 2004. This woman reportedly vanished near an intersection close to where Maura's Saturn accident occurred. Claude's ex-wife, Teresa V., submitted a tip in a Maura Murray Facebook group, suggesting that he might have been involved in Maura's disappearance. There's also a blurry thumbnail photo circulating of a red truck with a wooden bed, similar to the one Claude drove, which matches the description provided by the witness. It's reported that the concrete structures found in the backyard of the house where Claude lived were not part of the original construction, and there are no records documenting their installation or intended purpose. Additionally, shortly after Maura disappeared, the carpet in the downstairs area of the house was removed by Claude. Claude reportedly claimed that the carpet was removed from the downstairs area due to flooding. I would like to mention that is where the closet was located and where cadaver dogs positively reacted, suggesting the presence of human remains. Additionally, the new owners used luminol in the same closet, which revealed significant glowing, indicating the possible presence of blood. Also, the fireplace contained many animal bones after Claude left, and a black backpack was found buried in the backyard. Unfortunately, the backpack was discarded by the new owners, who did not know the significance of it before it could be investigated. After spending countless hours researching this topic, like other cases I have covered, I have reached the conclusion that Maura Murray became the random target of a local passerby who took advantage of her vulnerable state. In this scenario, the perpetrator may not have planned to commit a crime, but saw an opportunity and took it. We know for a fact that the dog lost her scent 100 yards from the accident site, which clearly points to her taking a ride from someone else. She was drunk while driving, crashed her car, and was in a state of pure panic, especially because this was her second car crash in 2 days. She wanted to avoid the police, as that would likely result in a criminal record. That's why she avoided any further interaction with the bus driver. Once he had left, she knew that she did not have much time before someone reported the accident to the police, and she was desperate to get away from the scene. Both Julie and Bill mentioned that Maura had previously talked about hitchhiking, and we have reports of a red truck heading towards the crash site around that time. Given her urgent need to escape, she might have accepted a ride from the driver. The fact that she wasn't seen by anyone else in any other vehicle along that road leads me to conclude that her driver was a local, familiar with the area, and didn't need to travel far to reach his destination. Once there, the driver could have seen an opportunity and might have kidnapped and later killed her. The person involved could be another local, or it could be Claude. We know that Claude owned a similar red truck and lived nearby. His house was overlooked in the initial searches and was only investigated in 2006, nearly 2 years later. By that time, any evidence, such as a body previously hidden in a cupboard, could have been removed. He may have disposed of the body in a manner that ensures it will never be found. However, I must admit that all of this is circumstantial evidence, and without concrete proof, no definitive action can be taken. Retired State Police investigator Lieutenant John Healy summed up this case quite well when he said, "She got into the wrong car. She went to the wrong house." So, what do you guys think really happened?